One of the reasons I was very, very keen to direct this and so delighted to be asked last year to come on board was that it's my daughter, who's now 8, it's her favourite story. And it was the first story she learnt to read. And she thought she was Wendy, she probably still does. And there was a moment where I had a real Mr. Darling moment where I completely lost it with her at dinner. And I banished her from the dinner table. And she went up, I was staying at my mother-in-law's, and she went up 3 flights of stairs and was very quiet for a while. And my mother-in-law said, oh, maybe you should go and check on Ella. It's very unlike her to be that quiet. So I went up 3 flights, and there she was in the window, in the casement window, with her legs on the wrong side of the window, 3 stories up. And she looked at me and she said, look, Papa, I can fly. And she made as if to fly out of the window. And I, of course, cleared the room in 3 seconds, less than 3 seconds, and grabbed her. And, but I think it's very instructive because the story does have that power. It's a myth, and it exerts that kind of power and fascination for children.
What's your name?
Wendy Moira Angela Darling. And yours?
Peter Pan.
Perhaps because J.M. Barrie had this very close relationship with these 5 boys, the Llewellyn Davis boys, who weren't his own children, but who became like his sons. It seems that he has a very clear vision of childhood and the spirit of childhood, and maybe had more clarity on it than we parents do, where it becomes more clouded and muddied. And he just seems to have managed to encapsulate something very crystalline around childhood. And that carries through right through the centre, the spirit of Peter Pan.
I think for all children, or for many children, it has that special place. And for adults, it's a completely different story for children than it is for adults. For kids, it's this wonderful adventure. And for adults, it can be a rather strange and sad experience, I think.
The project felt like it had an enormous amount of heart to it from the beginning, which was the right thing for Peter Pan, because there is such a heart at the centre of the story. It was important for me to make the story as accessible for people now as possible, but while keeping it still in its period. And that was a really clear brief from the producers. It needed to be Edwardian still, but without the alienating elements of it. And all the creatives and the producers and everyone involved and the actors who came on board, it felt like this huge new thing we were trying to achieve in this new tent.
We didn't stray far from what you might expect in the way of costumes. A couple of things. We decided that Peter, as we had a young man playing it, who's older than Peter was meant to be, but has a very young face, we didn't go for the little pixie, as you see on the famous statue in Kensington Gardens. We made him more as if he's gone native. There's a touch of Polynesia about his costume. He's partly a lost boy. We did the lost boys not in animal skins, as you might have seen in the Disney cartoon. They are literally the rags of children's clothes from their own youth. They've just been allowed to play forever in them.
We do it in the round, which is terribly important, because children play in the round. If you think about kids playing in the playground, they don't line up and face one way. And from the very first moment of rehearsal, the first thing we did was tape out a 12-metre circle on the floor. And immediately that was very, very liberating, particularly for the big fight scenes, but also for all the Lost Boys, all that physical work they do on the floor, terribly useful.
It was clear that the adaptation had to exist in this circular world. I think all that really allowed and asked of me was to make the dynamic between the actors very strong. The line between the characters on stage had to be very strong. What one person wanted from another and what the dynamic was between them was going to be the living element pitched against this extraordinary filmic design.
I think, like anything in theatre, you start with the specifics of the character. John, for example, is very brainy. He reads lots of textbooks and he's very cerebral. So he tries to fly using his brain and can't lift off the bed because you have to fly with your heart. Flying needs to be relaxed. This is the thing. So we know when we prepare, when the cast prepare, it's all about having a strong core. Flying works best when you're going with CGI, and you let the CGI take you on this journey.
One of the most fantastic things about being lucky enough to write music for a living is that you're often presented with challenges which you've never come across before. The scale of the way in which some of the key things were being presented was so vast. The musical potential there is huge, and a part of the brief, which was very much a discussion, was just to make sure the music matched the scale of the physical experience of that part of the production, and that's one of the best briefs you can get. You know, basically go for it. The score covers a very wide range in its emotional journey. You have the vast sweeping Flight to Neverland, which is accompanied by a full 80-piece symphony orchestra, recorded in London by some of the greatest musicians in the world. I mean, the experience of sitting in the middle of a theatre where you're surrounded by images and you actually get the physical sensation of flying. I knew that in order to match the scale of that experience musically, we had to do something which was incredibly thematic, you know, a theme which is very simple, very memorable, you know, something which is very sort of emotionally honest, and to give the sense of the exhilaration of flight. Then, of course, the underscore was completely different because it was underneath dialogue, which, and every night the dialogue was going to be slightly different, and that would slow things down or speed things up. You know, you never know what will happen because it's live performance, and that's quite exciting. So I had to sort of create sequences of music which could at any point be slightly changed timing-wise. So, for example, in the final battle between Hook and Peter, that cue, which is a continuous piece of music to the audience, is actually in about 5 different sections. And it's designed so that after a certain amount of minimum time, which we know basically that's the quickest a particular thing could happen in, it could then last however long it needed to until the next thing is cued. And that was a real challenge to make it work musically but also technically.
I remember coming out of the dark auditorium after this intensive period of work where we'd all been bringing the show to the boil, and coming out and just seeing the place flooded with audience, adults and children, all completely up for coming in and seeing this story. And it was really magical.
Really what we wanted to do was to restore the play to its status as a brilliant piece of art, a brilliant piece of work that it was in 1904 and had that incredible impact on its first audience. And I think because it's become associated with the panto tradition, we wanted to get rid of all that and restore it to what Barry intended, but with 21st century technology. And Bill Dudley was a world expert in using this CGI, in the integration of CGI and live theatre, realised that the inner walls of the tent are the perfect projection screen.
When I was first brought on board to design the show, I was shown drawings of the tent, and what was marvellous about it was it was not based on poles supporting the tent. It was entirely suspended from overhead gantries, and I said to the producers, and it was perfectly circular, do you know you've got the makings of a full 360-degree cinema way of doing this? And they said the interest in this is phenomenal, as an idea that you would have people flying through a CGI 360-degree, and they never veered from that in terms of support, and we committed to that fairly early on. I've been developing since 2002 the use of CGI in the live theatre. Like most of us, I'm absolutely fascinated by the work of Pixar Studios and all the other animated films. My interest is that theatre was where cinema came from. The early days pre-Chaplin in the 1880s and 90s, it was all grabbed from the theatre and from salon painting, and I thought it was time for the theatre to grab some stuff back for a change. And I wanted to bring the colour and the movement, the animation particularly, of CGI into live theatre. Looking back, we had no knowledge of a previous attempt at this, a full 360 continuous projection movie with live actors. So it was certainly a gamble at the time. I had blind faith in it. As you'll see in this show, it's a full 360-degree movie. It's shot entirely in CGI. There's no actual filming in it at all. And it's projected by 12 projectors onto a screen 3 times the width of IMAX.
I think one of the most exhilarating things for me creatively was when we put the first time we put the Flight to Neverland sequence together. Because up to that point it had been very technical, working on Bill's computer, working in the aerial studio, lots of very hard problem solving, lots of physics. But actually when you put it all together and when we put all the 5 bodies in the air relative to the film and when they flew for the first time, even though it wasn't perfected, the first time we kind of marked it through in the air was just really thrilling, and I'll never forget that.
First time we ran flying through Tower Bridge, we all kind of gasped. It was the scale of the imagery and how the moment the projectors were running, it took over the room, like cinema does, the magic of film, if you like. That was a gulp moment, really. We realised it's got immense potential because it's the CGI can be very efficient at producing dramatic events, as I hope you'll see in the show. I found it a bit overwhelming, actually. I hope you do too.
Hi, my name is Gavin Miller and I'm stage manager for Peter Pan. If you'd like to follow me, I'll take you sub-stage and show you where all the action happens. We're straight into Michael's bed. When the beds are at sub-stage, they're all spun round like this, so that there's not actually much room down here. So if you look just over here, we've got one of the big projectors. We've got 12 projectors down here, which project all the scenery for Peter Pan. Each one does 30 degrees because we work in 360 degrees projection, so the set is all around you. They kick out an awful lot of heat, so it gets very warm down here. This bit here is our automation control centre, so this controls all 3 of the beds. We've got Michael's bed here, John's bed and Wendy's bed. It's pretty simple. We've got a bed up and bed down function. We've got this unit here which controls the mound. So this also does mound up and mound down. And if you look just through there, that's our mound there, so we can see in there. So I can spin the mound now. So this is one of the trapdoors here. We've got special keys to unlock them all, to make sure that they only open when we want them to. The actors use this ladder and this trapdoor quite a lot throughout the show. One of the first times to use it is in the first Home Under the Ground scene, so which is a very quick transition, so all of the actors are actually helping us do the scene change. As you've seen, we've just opened the trapdoor, so this is the ladder that the actors come up, and they come up through the holes in the mound and then onto the stage. Through these doors here, this is into one of the children's wardrobes. And then we go through the back. This is now backstage into the props area. Through here we have a rather large crocodile. Well, thank you very much for coming round, and I hope you've enjoyed the tour.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Part 1 beginner's course. Stand by please, stage management, Alex sound, video area and wardrobe and all technical staff for Part 1. Thank you.
1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2 tools next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Code 6, 105 North Avenue, 52.
Ladies and gentlemen, this evening's performance of Peter Pan will begin in 3 minutes. Please take your seats now. This evening's performance will begin in 3 minutes.